Okay, hello everybody again. This is Sharonda, and this is my YouTube channel as well as my podcast, Spiritual Sense. And as I mentioned, I was going to speak on the topic of spiritual apathy. And so I decided to speak on this topic today because I do feel like it is relevant at this time. To speak on such topics as this, because we are dealing, I feel like we are in a spiritual warfare. I think we are, you know, we're at a battle. We are at a crossroads in our life right now where, you will be judged, and the true heart is being revealed at these times right now, particularly when you are put towards the test of time. Okay. And so this is why I decided to go ahead and do this podcast today, Spiritual Apathy, because you will find yourself in situations and scenarios such as this on a daily basis. Okay. And let me proceed. So I began to pull up some information, and briefly, I'm going to read off what the definition of um, spiritual apathy and what that is. So it says spiritual apathy is a feeling of indifference or even coldness to the things of God. So it can affect any Christian, even one who fully, sincerely is sincere in his faith and belief. Okay, so we're going to go off of what is apathy, because I coined the term spiritual apathy off of what is the word apathy. As defined on this for this presentation, apathy is a loss of interest in relations to social or emotional situations. So it's a state of indifferent mood. Apathy is presented as a lack of feeling, interest, or any particular concern about a specific situation or life in general. Okay. So I'm going to read off of here what is mentioned in regards to spiritual apathy. Okay. If it mentions here Dad's famous turkey, that spiritual apathy is a decline in attendance. It's what it has listed here on this website. Okay. First of all, let me explain something to you. You do not have to visit a church building or setting to receive revelation from God, meaning to receive the word from God. Now, I know you may say, well, yeah, that's true. You can turn on the TV, or you can actually video, they got the telehealth or the video messaging, and web, like I'm presenting this webinar or whatever. No. You can have your own personal relationship with God or higher being. You don't necessarily have to visit a church setting, whether it be by webinar or a building or conference or whatever. You don't necessarily have to, in order to have a relationship with God, visit a specified place or setting. Okay, you can have your own personal relationship with God, and in turn, you could confer with a spiritual being, whether it be a pastor, evangelist, missionary, or whatever you consider that to be. Okay. Lack of concern for souls. It says when soul winning and outreach times are attended by fewer and fewer people, there is a spiritual disconnect between what we say we believe. I'm going to spin off of that because I do believe there is a lack of concern for souls. If a person or persons are beginning to question If there's a lack of concern for spirit, like if the will of God have left the person to where they lack concern for their fellow man or woman, you know, there is a sign of spiritual apathy. But we also want to start to begin to do some soul searching within ourselves as to, okay, what that may be, because that's when empathy will come into place. Why does this person have a lack of or indifference towards his fellow man or woman? Is this person depressed? Is this person having some mental concerns? What are the social economic concerns around that person as to why there is some sense of lack of concern? Number 3, it says lack of participation in congregational singing. Okay, now this is what this person has specified here. Just because you don't sing in the choir does not mean that you are, or if you sing in the choir, that you are God's gifted and you're going to heaven and you deserve all of the, you know, the good things in life, like you're to be praised. No. I'm going to spin off of this information that I'm reading here. So you don't necessarily have to be 100%, if that is in fact possible, committed to a church or a religion or a church setting, so to speak. Okay. You know, God is in all, and we all are by what? Spirit. So, you know, even if you extend a helping hand to, you know, someone that is, you know, on the street, buying somebody a meal, if you may, you know, a phone call to a distant relative to see if they're okay. You know, these are some things that would be of service to a person. You don't necessarily have to go to a building to extend your service or to be of service of God fearing Christian or even a God fearing person in order that to be deemed of God. Meaning you don't have to be quote unquote Christian to be of God, is the point. Number 4, indifference to the needs of others. It says growing Christians are caring Christians. Scriptures command us to bear another's burdens. When we don't care enough to know what the people around us are going through, we're slipping into self-focused apathy for sure. And that is true. You know, now, do we, you know, I mean, God gives us the tools of common sense and common knowledge and know-how. So, you know, of course you're not going to see a situation where somebody is being victimized, and, you know, you may not want to intercede for your safety and concern, but you may want to call those individuals who are trained to do so. So of course, you know, you if you're seeing somebody in need and there's some troubles, of course you want to alert, you know, if you yourself can't be a good Samaritan, to alert those individuals who are trained to do so. Okay. Number 5, no pastoral encouragement. It says the Bible commands us to know those who labor among us and to remember them for their work's sake. Just a maturing teenager or an adult will notice and be grateful for the care and sacrifices of their parent. So growing Christians will give thanks for spiritual shepherds who serve them. When you are a servant of God, a true servant of God, some people require or may need that acknowledgement and that show little, you know, showmanship or, you know, of appreciation and gratitude for their works. But if you are somebody, and there's nothing wrong with that once in a while where, you know, you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not appreciated. If somebody could just take out the time and acknowledge me, okay, I understand that. But if you are somebody who repeatedly requires or wants,
it's gonna be great,
some to be patted on your back for something that you signed up for. That is not of God, in my opinion. That is not of God. Now, of course, we all would want to be appreciated for our works. That's normal. That's natural. But if it gets to the point where um you want somebody to praise you for your work, that's not right. However, there is a sense where a person can be burnt out from trying to be of service to people, and you just strictly see, okay, no matter what I do, it's just always seems like the cards are stacked against. That's when you begin to have to do some self soul searching and evaluation of yourself. Okay, maybe I need to transition to something that's going to be beneficial for me and my family. Because oftentimes you'll find people will set up a systemized order to where you could be of service to their cause. That's not how life works. Okay, it has to be a two-way type of deal. Simple as that. And I think a lot of people are finding that, particularly in healthcare and many professions, where they feel like, okay, somebody psyched them up, so to speak, just to get me off to do this. Okay. So we have what number 6, declining concern for missions. When the church become inward focused, they are no longer concerned for the fields right into harvest. Those They lose their sense of internal realities and the spiritual responsibility to reach the world with the gospel. So in turn, where you focus and where you're headed at, what the mission is, if you have a vision in mind and then you want to go about that mission. So you don't want to lose sight of that. You don't want to get distracted. However, there may be times, as I mentioned, where, you are presented with, you know, everyday walks of life folk that are in need. You should be the guiding force to be able to direct them as to where they can go. You may not be able to provide that service to them, but you can at least be resourceful enough to where you can guide them in the direction that they may need to get whatever they need accomplished. Okay. So number 7, failure to invest in the next generation. It says when a church fails to see young men and women as their future and fails to invest in their development, apathy is setting in. Frankly, the church may not continue in the next generation. And that is true. You want to instill the seeds, the proper seeds, so the youth and the generation of today can prosper. And you do that not only by financial means, but you do it by guidance, career development. You do it by encouragement, workshops, and things of that nature. So, they're able to use those tools in everyday walks of life to be of service to people. So that is true, and it's not just, as I mentioned, financial investment, but it's also, you know, um, knowledge-based investment as well. So let me see if I'm able to pull up some more information about um, overcoming spiritual apathy. So, as I have myself, my definition of spiritual apathy is this. When you will begin to know when a person has become spiritual apathy, because there is a lack of not only concern for oneself, but the concern for ones around them. I mean, the initiative. There's no initiative. You may find that you have to repetitive keep saying the same thing over and over again. Now, that is something totally different, or totally to the contrary, where you may find somebody that may be in a situation over and over again, a repetitive situation. No, 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 no. This is something totally different. Um, and when you begin to see that, um, I feel as though that is when a person has let loose and just, it's a difference between when God says release. When God says, okay, you've done all you can do, release. And then you have spiritual apathy where there is no concern. like is you feel like the person in a sense is gone, like could actually be a harm to himself or others or herself and others. And when it gets to that point, that's when we um I feel like even the leaders in Christ or people that are, consider themselves to be of service to their fellow man and woman, okay, something in this situation we need to look towards, okay? And trying to what? Deal with those things. So I'm on a blog here and where this person is mentioning about apathy, spiritual apathy, how to overcome spiritual apathy. There's a verse here, which is Malachi chapter 4, verse 2, and this is the NLT version. It says, but for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings. Um, so now her account of what spiritual apathy is, and I will read. It says, she mentions that spiritual apathy is a lack of interest for anything related to God. That includes, she mentions reading the Bible, going to church, praying, worshiping, or fellowshipping with other Christians. That's her account of what spiritual apathy is. And I'm not on her website because I did choose to go on her website to criticize what she says spiritual apathy is. Because once again, you do not have to be what? You do not have to um, go to church to be of God. You don't have to fellowship. It is, good for the mind, body, and spirit to be sociable and socialize. You don't necessarily have to integrate in a church setting or religious setting to be of God. But essentially, that's not what she's saying. But she mentions about reading the Bible. You don't have to read the Bible to be a service of God. Many times, people that read the Bible, in my opinion, are programmed. And I'm not going to sit here and say all people are like that, but many people do read that Bible and it does work against them. And that's just my personal opinion about it. It is. And I feel like when you look at it in a certain aspect of it and you focus on it in a certain aspect of it, it will cause this spiritual apathy. It will, particularly when you are doing the things that it says not to do. Okay? And so anybody that would tell you to the contrary has been brainwashed and has what? Had the spirit to turn against it. Particularly when they have lived in sin and they have did some simple things. And this is what God, and this goes back into what I mentioned about spiritual branding, meaning kind of like an OCD where they are what? They are typecast. That means they are set at this. They can't change if they wanted to. They can't change if they want to because this is what my sin was. This is what my struggle, my vice was. And I have been shamed, typecast, stripped of all of my human dignity and integrity. And boom, that's where I am at. So if somebody tells you that you cannot have a relationship with God if you're not a Christian, if somebody tells you that you cannot have a relationship with God because you don't go to church, and somebody tells you you can't have a relationship with God because they won't let you use them and cause burnout and all of these feelings of guilt and lack of self-worth and don't measure up, you don't need those people in your life. They are toxic, plain and simple. Because you can be of service of God and put your foot down. I mentioned this in another episode that I had years ago. A couple of days ago. When I said that you can be of God and still have a drawing board or a drawing line. Plain and simple. Because what you will begin to find is mockery within those individuals who teaches those things to you. The same things that they preach or teach. Do you see them those things being perpetuated out? No. And I honestly feel like it's a test within the text, so to speak. I didn't tell you to do that. And you need to be able to understand the Bible to know where this person is coming from and what God was meaning. So in a sense, it's kind of like a critical thinking type of tool in regards to what was written. Okay. So I'm not here to get in no debate because, as I mentioned, my spiritual sense is an open social discussion on a variety of topics in regards to the spirit, mind, body, and spirit. But I did mention that I wanted to do this podcast in regards to spiritual apathy and what I felt spiritual apathy was. Regarding feeling like, you're at a loss, you're backed up against the wall, you can't, there's no one you can trust or even turn to. And the purpose of me doing this podcast as well is God put it in my spirit and he revealed to me. He says judgment comes in stages. That's what he says. He says revelations will come in stages, meaning ability to know when you grasp things, like when a person begins to know and receive that revelation. He says, I will make it apparent to you in their countenance, like they would have a radiance or a glow, and you would know when they have been touched by an angel, so to speak. Also, he mentions that judgment, how you always hear the saying, oh, we are in the last days and the world coming to the end and stuff. And for some, it does. While everybody's, your world could be falling down, but it seems like everybody around you, their world is still going. Like it's still going. Your world could be falling down. I mean, everything could be falling down around you. But to others, the world still goes on. Catch my drill? He made it apparent to me in my life's experiences. This is how judgment happens in regards to spiritual apathy, where everything falls down around you, and that the last days, as they refer to it, happens in stages. And oftentimes you will see in cities, counties, towns, countries, as such, where it becomes very desolate. Nothing is ever right. And God made it apparent to me, this is judgment. This is judgment, and judgment happens in stages. He also made it apparent to me that everybody is not on the same page. That means everybody is not on this up to date or up to par, so to speak. And how he will refrain certain people from understanding what he truly was talking about. And how some people won't get it. Like they can search their whole lifetime and they would never get it, and it's right there in front of them. They would not get it because it's right there in front of them. And how he would seal those from knowing, and the ones that come from afar could go and come straight to it. And he made that apparent to me about how spirituality works, how the breakdown and judgment happens in stages. And it don't necessarily, it could be in a certain region, it could be in a certain city, part of a neighborhood. And, in your world, things could be just, fine. and then you go 2 streets over or go down the street, and it's just like you literally drove into the twilight zone, like you are honestly in a time warp, so to speak. And that's when it became apparent to me, this is judgment. This is judgment. And I will make that apparent to those who I choose to see it, because many people won't be able to see it. They are shielded from it in their due time when they understand that. And don't argue with them. Don't try to fuss with them. Don't even try to fight with them. And so that's it. That's it with that in terms of spiritual apathy and how judgment happens in stages. Okay. So I am going to close out this podcast today on my spiritual sense as well as my spiritual sense webinar. And my name is Sharonda King. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you're more than welcome to comment on my Spreaker or my YouTube. Please, no inappropriate comments, questions, or suggestions. Until then, you have a safe and wonderful day. Good day.